ESPN put out a list of the top free agents this offseason, and number one was T. Higgins. And if there is a player you want, the last place you want to see him is number one on all the free agency lists, because that's an agent reading it. That's just the price is going up. So the question becomes, do you want to pay that? Do you want to go top dollar? Do you want to be all in for T. Higgins?
The wide receiver from Cincinnati.
Yes. Who Cincinnati would love to keep, but they've got to find a way to pay Jamar Chase.
Yes.
So talk about price going up. T. Higgins is really good. Call it like I sees it. It's really good. And as that's happening, right, as T. Higgins is becoming more and more and more the crown jewel of this free agency class, I'm getting further and further and further into my draft prep, and I'm looking around going, I don't know if there's a wide receiver that is worthy of the 8th overall pick, which is where the Panthers sit. Many will say Teteroa McMillan from Arizona. I'm not there yet, right? I want to see the combine. I want to see some of the measurables. I want to know if he's 6'5" or if he's 6'4" and an eighth. Like I want to see some of that.
Hey, it makes a difference.
It does, because he's not an elite separator. That's where I'm at right now. He's not going to put the old gotcha little route him up and get 6 yards of separation. He's going to have to be a contested catch guy, which he can do if he's 6'5" with an elite wingspan and he has the leaping ability. So I'm not there at number 8 overall yet. Could be, but I'm not there yet. And he might not be there at all. He might go 6th, and then you're looking at the next guy. I like Igbuka. He's a nice wide receiver, but to me, 20th pick might be a little even rich, right? He's a 20s guy. Trey Harris is nice. Same thing, late first at best. These are I'm out on Luther Burden. These are the top kind of wide receiver prospects in the draft. So that means, based on the idea that the Panthers have a long shopping list this offseason, but there are 2 things at the top. You need a number 1 wide receiver and an edge rusher. To me, those are the non-negotiables. You have to walk away with that regardless of what else you solve or don't solve. The draft is deep at edge rusher. The draft has some dudes. The draft has some studs. I'm even like, go watch this Marshall guy at the Senior Bowl. Green is his last name. I don't know where he came from. Apparently, he's been lighting it up at Marshall.
Oh, Matt Green?
Sure. His last name is Green. I've just watched him on tape. He will light you up.
He's, from my understanding, a prototypical 3-4 outside linebacker, which is what the Carolina Panthers run, 3-4. Like edge/outside linebacker, can do all the things.
I'm not disagreeing with all of that. I call him a dude.
Yeah, too.
He ran through go watch the Senior Bowl. If you just go Green Senior Bowl right now, I guarantee it'll be the first thing that popped up. He ran through a tackle's face. One of the best tackles in the country, right through his face. So, and he's projected to be like a 27th pick. My guess is he'll rise based on what I'm seeing, but it's a deep edge rusher situation in the draft, which means I believe there will be somebody that might be the 4th overall pick in some other draft available at 8th overall for the Panthers at edge rusher. If you plan there, you need to spend on a wide receiver elsewhere, right? You need to go free agency, wherever it is. Now, looking at that ESPN top 50 free agents list, the number 1 player was T. Higgins, wide receiver, Bengals, as we said. Number 5, Chris Godwin, familiar with him in division from the Bucs, coming off an injury.
Play under Dave Canales.
True. Actually, I hadn't even put that together, and I should have. 18th was Amari Cooper. I think you know him. 26, Stephon Diggs. Think you know him. 36, Darius Slayton. You don't have to remember all this. I'm just giving you a vibe. Darius Slayton, the Giants, kind of younger, looking for a first non-rookie contract from the Giants. Keenan Allen all the way at the end, and then Hollywood Brown just missed the list. I hate to say it, not the strongest wide receiver class for free agents either. And if we take out the 30-year-olds, because you already have that one, right? You have Thielen. You have the wily veteran. You don't want to put him on one side and like Keenan Allen on the other and be like, we don't have speed, but we've got loads of experience. Like, no, if you eliminate that, then, out goes Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen. They're not options. Starts to get real thin real quick. Jeremy Fowler in the article says Carolina would make some sense for Darius Slayton on a Darnell Mooney type contract. That's 3 years, $39 million. If you go to Bryce Young and you go, hey, listen, man, I know we haven't put the best skill sets around you through your first 2 years. We've now committed to you as our guy, and we've solved your wide receiver problem. Darius Slayton. Championship. What was that? The old fantasy football commercial? TJ Hushmanzada. Championship. Bryce Young's going to look at you and go, another year where my Alabama wide receivers are better than the ones that I have in the NFL. T. Higgins or Chris Godwin. That's where I'm at right now. T. Higgins or Chris Godwin. Cash in whatever chips you have in the hey, people might actually want to come play for us here. Hey, we have positive buzz right now. The free agents probably wouldn't entertain you last offseason or the offseason before. This year, you have a little bit more cachet. Find the cap space, spend some cap space, manipulate the contract however you need it. This is a crucial year for Bryce Young. I don't know how many times I have to reference it. Josh Allen going into his third year got Stephon Diggs. And not now Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs however long, 5 years ago, whatever that was. Mid-20s Stephon Diggs, not early 30s Stephon Diggs. Going into Jalen Hurts' third year, he got A.J. Brown. Tua got Tyreek Hill going into his third year. When you are hitting that point where you're ready to run your offense, you need the number one who's ready to be there with you. And unless you're somebody lucky enough like the Joe Burrows and the Pat Mahomes of the world to just come into the NFL and pretty much immediately have really good wide receivers around you, high draft picks, all that, unless you're in that situation, that third year, it becomes vital. Not only because it's a good time for you to take the next step, but also because you have to make a decision on Bryce next offseason. Are you going to pick up his fifth-year option? Are you going to sign him to a long-term extension? And it's the first time he'll be eligible for that. You don't want what-ifs. We have to decide to give this guy $50+ million a year, and we're projecting that once he gets a number one wide receiver, the flaws that we've seen will go away. You don't want to be projecting. You don't want to be guessing. You don't even want to be educated guessing about what a player could be when you're talking $55 million a year. There was some of that with Trevor Lawrence, right? They gave him all that money. Jordan Love, they gave him all that money with the idea that, he'll get better when we shore up the offensive line. He'll get better when we give him a true number one. He'll get better when I can't imagine being the one signing the checks going, yeah, let's give him $55 million, and then hopefully we can do what we need to do to get him to where we think he can go. I wish this were last year. Last year, 8th overall. Roma Dunze, there were better wide receiver prospects at that point in time. I wish it were a year where the free agent wide receivers were loaded. It's not that.
Do you think, though, with all the holes that this team has, they have a ton.
Yep.
If you go all in on a wideout, it's going to prevent you from signing a lot of other things that you need. A lot.
If I thought there was
because that defense needs an overhaul.
If I thought there was something more important than Bryce Young being or not being the future of your franchise, then I would spend elsewhere. I think you're still not this year, and I've tried to throw the wet blanket a few times on the Bryce Young bonfire. He's had a half year of really, really good football. He's been in Carolina for 2 seasons, right? Which means he had 1.5 years of not that great football, and I'm being generous. You got a half year there, and you need to decide whether he's the guy or not. Because let's say, right? Let's say you don't spend on the wide receiver. You go, we'll wait for next year's draft. We're huge fans of, and whoever the stud sophomores are out there, and hopefully XYZ contract will come due, and they'll be a free agent. It's a better class. We'll wait till next year. You spend on defense. You go get a edge rusher. Let's be optimistic and say a Jalen Carter or something fits in perfectly. Georgia, outside linebacker, 8th pick, boom, plays gangbusters. You go spend on a big money free agent corner. You spend on a big money free agent safety. Your defense is great. And about 6 games into the year, you go, yeah, Bryce isn't it, is it?
Well,
Right?
if that's the case, if Bryce isn't it, then Bryce isn't it. That's regardless if a wide receiver or not.
But except then there's the same crutch he's been leaning on, which is the wide receivers aren't getting open. Xavier, he should have won this game, but Xavier Legette dropped it. He was doing great until Adam Thielen got hurt. He's depending so much on an undrafted free agent wide receiver. Like there is logic to, if you're a quarterback and you don't have the wide receivers, it's unfair to judge you as if you do. It's an incomplete. Right? If you ask me to dig a hole and you don't give me a shovel, you can't come back and be like, I expected you to be further down in the ground by now. I'm going like, well, I'm using fingernails. Like, I'm doing the best I can. That's what Bryce Young was definitely doing his rookie year. And he may have had like a little garden shovel, a little one-hander his second year. At the end of this season, you have to know beyond a shadow of a doubt if Bryce Young is your franchise quarterback that you're committing to $55 million a year, or if he's not and you got to go move on elsewhere, in which case, no offense, who cares if your defense is significantly improved from last year? You're back to the Teddy Bridgewaters, the Baker Mayfields, the Sam Darnolds, the draft picks. You're back to square one on the most important position on the field. Like it's important to see if the guy is your guy. And get an edge rusher. I think those are the two equally important, number one on the to-do list. You need somebody to ruin the other quarterback's day and somebody to make your quarterback's day.
I just think this team has so many holes. I don't think they can afford to spend that kind of money on a wideout. They just can't. And plus, I mean,
if you think
Higgins want to
cheaper,
look and see, like, hey, I'm going to go to Carolina.
If you think Godwin's cheaper because coming off the injury, I'm fine with that. I would rather have the guy that's taller, faster, younger. But
well, sure, but I mean, people are going to break the bank that have way more money to spend. I'm just saying, don't bank on getting that guy.
See, I think you go for it, and especially with
I
the
don't
fact
think you can afford it. You just can't. You
well,
don't have the money.
the bargain basement bin additions don't work. We've seen it how many times. If you go find the guy that showed some promise with the Jags and he had a 1,000-yard year a couple years ago, it's DJ Chark for $5 million. If you go and say, you know what, we're gonna spread it out and get the 4th best free agent at every position, you're gonna walk away with a whole bunch of Von Bells and Xavier Woods. Like at a certain point, the thing they did with the guards, they didn't go out and get the 3rd highest paid guard of the free agency class. They spent $100 million on Robert Hunt.
Sure.
And it worked gloriously.
Because they can afford that. They can't do that now.
They had to take it away from defense. They had to not pay Brian Burns in order to pay the guards. It would be a similar move to not pay whatever the big ticket line you want on defense would be, or to not pay 4 mid-ticket lines on defense, in exchange get the stud that you know you can build around. T. Higgins or Chris Godwin? As of right now, right? Still early. Still got free. The Super Bowl hasn't even been played. And then a edge rusher at 8, unless there's like 6 of the first 7 picks are edge rushers.